I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter. You may know me from such resume entries as retired United States Army infantry colonel, 30-year Los Angeles trial lawyer, senior columnist at townhall.com. You should read me every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I am also the author of a number of books, including the Kelly Turnbull series of People's Republic conservative action novels. The most recent is Panama Red, and some other ones, The American Apocalypse and The Attack, which talks about a terrorist attack following involving Iran. So maybe it's getting, a little edgy. And also, of course, Los Angeles, Silver Bullets on the Sunset Strip, which I wrote with my wife, Irina. It's a lot of fun. You should check them all out on Amazon. So I love guest hosting for Hugh Hewitt on days like this because we've got so much stuff going on. We've got the State of the Union coming up, and we're going to be talking about that, and we got some great guests to do that with, including Michael Duncan of Ruthless, and we've got Byron York will show up, Michael Watley, who was the chairman of the RNC for a while. Now he's a North Carolina Senate candidate. We got some great folks. We've got hockey. Which, look, I'm from California, man. I'm not a hockey guy. But how can you not love the guy with the tooth knocked out? He's all happy. He's holding the American flag. And a whole bunch of shrill SSRI wine women are going, how can you do this? You're committing genocide on stolen land. You took the land. Where was your land acknowledgement? You didn't acknowledge the land. Also, you were mean to the women who won, who also didn't acknowledge the land. I'm sad, and no man wants me, and that's why I'm bitter. And these hockey guys are amazing because they're getting shrieked at by these proto-feminist nuts who apparently are all indoors because it's too cold to go out and hassle the working class heroes of ICE. So they've got nothing better to do but gulp some Chardonnay and type about how terrible it is that these guys actually accepted an invitation from the president of the United States. How can you believe that? That's actually not a cut, but it could have been. And we will have some cuts from these people because they are amazing and they're terrible. So they're freaking out about men being happy, and they're freaking out about the State of the Union. Wait, while we're here, Representative Angie Craig, who's she's like Spanberger without the weird pale Sandra Locke vibe. She's not going to the State of the Union, folks. Trump's breaking norms, so I'm going to break norms because of the norms. Let's hear what Angie had to say. This is great. Number 9.
And I'll just end with this. I would rather stick forks in my eyes than be here tonight to listen to Donald Trump talk about the State of the Union. But this is the people's house, and I will not abandon the people's house.
So she's got Ilhan Omar behind her, right? And she's got another person I don't recognize, but she looks like a sour apple doll. And I got to tell you, this Angie Craig lady just putting off the vibe of the most annoying teacher at the elementary school. The one who's constantly pestering the little boys to use their inside voice.
Her terms are acceptable.
Yeah, I'm going to and if you don't submit, I will stick forks in my eyes. And the hockey guys, I got the hockey guy vibe. Don't care what you're going to do. I got a Michelob. It is if these people are searching for ways to turn off the half of America that is normal, as opposed to half the vote for Kamala Harris. They just, I don't understand people like that. I am so angry at Donald Trump. He's literally a fascist, which is why I'm able to be in the Congress and able to come to the State of the Union, because I'm not in a gulag. And anybody got a fork? Anybody got a... I would rather stick forks. Not dramatic at all. God, it's just embarrassing. And in the background of all this, we got some serious stuff. I'm not saying the State of the Union isn't serious, but it's Donald Trump. You know, it's not going to be like any State of the Union from anybody else, let me tell you. Gosh, and I hope nobody breaks the norms by, I don't know, ripping up his speech behind him as they get off the podium. That would be terrible because it's important to have norms. But we've got real stuff going on right now. The Gang of Eight is on Capitol Hill currently being briefed by the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, who only has one job, and Marco Rubio, who has about 64. In fact, he actually changed my oil before I came in here today because he was working down at Jiffy Lube. He's briefing the Gang of Eight, which are the 8 Intelligence Committee members, House and Senate, who who are entrusted with the highest of secrets. And they're talking about the what can or may happen in Iran, and it could happen today. How much of a baller move is it, right? Because it's like, right now it's getting dark in Tehran. Right now, Trump says go. And 2 aircraft carriers disgorge their fighters. You got F-35s, you got F-22s sweeping the skies. You got B-52s. Well, they won't go in, but they'll stand off and shower it with cruise missiles, joined by cruise missiles from the missile subs and the destroyers off the coast. We got about a third of our surface fleet off the coast of, or within striking range of Tehran right now. The correlation of forces is not in the mullah's favor. And we also got the B-2s. And you don't want them knocking at your door any more than you want Delta Force knocking at your door. You know what I'm saying? That's not that's a one-way ticket to your 72 virgins. And I'm not thinking that the mullahs I'm not thinking the mullahs are going to get the kind of virgins they're thinking about, you know? Not the kind they want. In any case, let's go and see what Ted Cruz had to say, because he went on CNBC for some reason. Cut number 2.
Look, I think the president's leadership on Iran has been incredible. The decision to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities was the single most important national security decision of the president.
Some serious...
It took enormous cojones, as Cubans would say.
Exactly.
Look, and it was a spectacular success. We're at a moment, Joe, where in the next 6 months, we could realistically see the regimes in Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba all fall, and we could see them replaced with governments that want to be friends with America. Now let me be clear. There are 1,000 ways that can go wrong, so I'm not being Pollyannish about that. But if that happened, that would be the biggest geopolitical shift since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And so tonight, I expect the president to talk about historic successes over this last year, because it really has been an extraordinary year, both in national security and foreign policy, but also in domestic policy.
Thank you, Ted Cruz. When I hear a Republican talk like that, I need a cigarette and a cuddle. I mean, we are in the... Maduro, gone, right? The mullahs, imagine the mullahs, gone. Imagine Cuba, free. We're taking care of we're settling all family business. Trump is Michael Corleone. Look out, Barzini, Stacci, and all the rest of you, Tattaglia. He's coming knocking, and you're going to let him in. It's going to be amazing. That's Social Distortion with its cover of the Rolling Stones classic, Under My Thumb, played in honor of America's men's hockey team and women's hockey teams. They both dominated the maple syrup gang. They crushed the Leafs. They broke the men of the barren wasteland that is Canada. I couldn't be happier. What a bunch of pinko weenies. I'm now joined by Michael Duncan from the Ruthless podcast. Michael, you look like a hockey player.
Oh, yeah, I had to get into the spirit. You know, the hockey teams here in Washington, D.C.,
for the State of the Union. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I love what you said there, Kurt. I'm drinking maple syrup tears, too. I love it.
Well, you should have a Michelob in your hand just to complete the image and break out one of your teeth. Maybe suggest that you and Smog fly coach on Southwest. That'll do it with him. I was listening to you guys on the way down here. You guys on Ruthless Podcast are great, and I couldn't think of anybody better to have on to give me their take on this whole hockey thing. How do you figure that the Democrats, after coming off last week of gathering together and deciding, yeah, let's come out against dogs, decided, yeah, let's come out against America winning a gold medal in hockey? I mean, is it some kind of complex plan, some 15D chess we can't figure out, or are they just as stupid as we think they are?
I think they're pretty stupid. I mean, there's nobody better in politics from snatching the defeat from the jaws of victory than the Democrats. I mean, this was a moment for the entire American people to celebrate. And so, of course, they found a way to be on the opposite side of the issue. And in particular, you can look at the Canadians who beat us in the Four Nations last year, booing our national anthem. We finally get some redemption, and the Democrats are taking their side. It's incredible.
I find it amazing that they're running articles to the effect of, are you sad because people are embracing and loving America's flag? Do you miss the land acknowledgement that we should have given but didn't? You're not alone. Yes, you are. You're a lonely shut-in who no one loves.
Well, and these people don't even like sports, Kurt. I mean, how can you disagree with a team like the USA hockey team? You got Jack Hughes up there. The first thing he says in the post-game interview is, we're just so proud to be Americans. Oh. And they're against it. The Democrats are against it. It's shocking.
Well, look, I'm from California. Nothing shocks me. I have a governor who just explained to an audience of black people, I'm just as dumb as you, as his way of extending a hand in solidarity. I mean, aging Patrick Bateman here. I don't know. I don't even know what's up with that. Let me ask you something. We got the State of the Union coming up, and I never know what Donald Trump's going to do. Are we going to get regular? Are we going to get like pretending to be normal Trump, where he comes out and reads a carefully curated address, or is he going to walk out, grab his groin, and yell, "Here's your State of the Union, libs"? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know either. But I think what Donald Trump does better than anyone in politics is be a salesman. And that's his number one goal tonight, is to be a salesman for the future of the American economy and what the Trump administration has done for the American family. I think what he did last year, where he went through all of the accomplishments of DOGE and pointed out all of the crazy, harebrained liberal spending that was going to a pit of nowhere that didn't benefit any American. I think he has an opportunity to do that again with highlighting things like the fraud that we've seen from the daycares in Minnesota and things like that. If he can weave through some of those vignettes like he did with DOGE last year, I think he's going to be successful, because he's going to get some chuckles out of the room. And that's how he feeds off that crowd interaction. So if he's able to do that, I think it'll be a successful speech.
Well, look, I am a faithful listener of the Ruthless podcast. It accompanies on my walks as I try and get myself in shape for the coming apocalypse. I think I know. I think we're going to agree on this. You tell me if I'm wrong. But I think the State of the Union really starts the midterm nationalized race, with Donald Trump leading the charge to keep the House and the Senate. And I think the decisive point in this battle is going to be the economy. And I think the economy's doing better, even if everyone hasn't felt it yet. What do y'all think?
I think that's 100% true. And I mean, we're approaching tax season, Kurt, and I think the American people are going to start to feel the benefit of the Trump economy when it comes to getting their refunds. And I think also, I agree, the State of the Union's the beginning of the midterms officially, and nobody's better at selling his success than Donald Trump. And it's not going to stop at the State of the Union. There's also this talk of a midterm convention. Donald Trump is leaning into this midterm to turn out that Trump voter that typically doesn't vote in midterms. And so I think him leading the way is going to be huge for Republican success this fall.
Look, I know the historical tides, and I'm, as a lawyer and a Army colonel, I pride myself on being objective, looking at facts, even when I don't like them. The historical trends are against us. That being said, I don't think we need to resign ourselves to losing the House. I think we can gain in the House. I think we can gain in the Senate. We got a powerful economy coming. We're taking out our enemies. Mo Green's about to get a bullet through the eyeball in Tehran. I think Donald Trump's going to have a lot of great things to sell, and I think the American people are going to respond. Am I completely crazy or just normal crazy?
No, I think you're optimistically crazy. I'd say that's how I would put it. But that's a good way to be here. I mean, like, we can't resign ourselves to defeat. Donald Trump has to go out there and sell what his administration has done. And he also have to remind the voters of America that this isn't just a referendum on the accomplishments of what he's done in office. It's also a choice. Look back to what Joe Biden was doing when he was president and the failure that he had our country walking into. And you got to remind people of how bad things were under Joe Biden in order to get them to buy into the success of Donald Trump. And if he does those two things, I think I like our chances in the fall.
One of the things I love about you guys on Ruthless, you guys are funny, you guys are smart, but you're pros. You've actually done this, and you actually teach the audience a little of the mechanics of planning, supporting, and executing campaigns. If you were running a campaign for some semi-swing seat Republican, somebody who can win, but he's got to fight, what's your advice to him? How does a normal Republican win in this environment?
Well, I think you lean into the success of Donald Trump's administration on issues like immigration, on crime, and you put his success in economic sense in real terms, kitchen table terms that the average American family appreciates. And I think if you do those three things, you will be successful.
So if I'm reading you right, your advice would not to be, run away with your hair on fire and your hands in the air from Donald Trump. But while the leftists, I think they're going to focus completely on Donald Trump, sounds to me like the Democrats may not have the best possible strategy.
No, and I mean, if history is our guide, when more people vote, Republicans win. That is the great thing about the new coalition under Donald Trump. Lower propensity voters, people who typically sit out for things like midterms, if they vote, Republicans will win.
I love hearing that. Michael Duncan from one of my favorite podcasts, the Ruthless podcast. Hey, say hi to your pals. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter. That, of course, is the theme from The Godfather. Because the United States is in the process of taking out the heads of the five families, settling all family business. We got Maduro. We're going to get Cuba. And, of course, I referred in the last segment with Michael Duncan of Ruthless, I referred to it as Mo Green's about to get popped in the eyeball on the massage table. And I walk out, and Adam observes, he's giggling. And I'm like, okay, it was funny. It wasn't that funny. He goes, no. You made the Mullins Jews. Mo Green. And I'm like, he's like, they're going to be so mad. Oh, gosh. It's amazing. And, I was also stunned. We have a young man here, Harley. He admitted that he has only seen The Godfather once. I don't even know what those words mean in that order. It's like Shawshank Redemption. If you're clicking the tube and you come across The Godfather, even if you're 14 minutes in and they're dancing around at Sonny's wedding or whatever her name's wedding, the girl. If they're dancing around, you gotta watch the other 3 hours. You can't stop. It's against the man law. That's the same man law that the hockey players, the American hockey team, abided by when they grabbed the flag and loved America instead of trashing it like all the hideous hard five wine women wanted them to. There's one out there. What'd she say? Oh, this is great. It's from USA Today. The USA men's hockey team utterly failed to meet the cultural moment. Okay, Mary Clark of USA Today, whatever that is. You need a boyfriend. You desperately, and I don't mean some weird femboy who can't fix his own Prius. I mean a red hat wearing, red meat eating, red wine drinking, 45 caliber loving man. Preferably a paratrooper. Not me, though. I'm taken. My wife's Cuban because I fear nothing. Speaking of fear, do you fear buying a house because you think you're going to be abused about interest rates? Don't. If you've been waiting for the right time to buy your house, this might be it. Market looks a lot different than it did a year ago. There's more inventory. Bidding wars have cooled off. Buyers have finally found a little breathing room. That means choices, negotiating power, more control over your deal. But there's a catch. It's not going to last forever, folks. As inflation continues to ease, thank you, Donald Trump, and the Fed moves closer to cutting rates, adios, Jerome Powell. Time's a-ticking. More buyers are expected to jump back in the market, and when that happens, competition's going to heat up. Prices will follow right behind. That's why being prepared now matters. You need to talk to our friends Andrew and Todd at Union Home Mortgage. Now, this is where I confess. Andrew and Todd's people have helped me get 2 mortgages. I'm not changing my mortgage because the one they got me is fantastic. I'm basically being paid to keep my house because of Andrew and Todd. That's the quality you get with their over 40 years of combined experience. They'll help you understand your options. They'll get you fully approved. You can move forward with confidence without pressure or guesswork. Get it done. Make it happen. Go get a house. Don't be like me and wait till you're 50. Get a house now. Go on. Get started today. AndrewandTodd.com. That's AndrewandTodd.com. That's AndrewandTodd.com, or call 888-888-1172. Andrew and Todd, I did it. You can do it too. I gotta tell you, I'm still taken aback by the utter insanity of the Democrats. Do they not understand that when there's an 80-20 issue, you want to be on the 80 side? Look, I'm no genius here. I mean, I'm as dumb as Gavin Newsom. Okay, I'm not as dumb as Gavin Newsom. I've got a dog who's not as dumb as Gavin Newsom. I know minerals who aren't as dumb as Gavin Newsom. But I do understand that when there's an 80-20 issue, you want to be on the 80 side. You don't want to be on the Munchausen mommy, cut kids up to conform to mommy's delusions issue. You don't want to be on the, well, newcomers to our country don't like dogs. I guess we got to give up Fido. And you don't want to be against a bunch of winners who love America and the flag. But the Democrats aren't going to listen to me. And that's okay, because I want them to lose. We're joined by one of my favorite guests, David Drucker, the Dispatch's senior political writer. You can follow him at David M. Drucker. And David, State of the Union tonight. What are we going to see?
Well, my short answer is Trump's going to be Trump. The Democrats are going to be the Democrats. And then we're all going to go about our business tomorrow.
David, have we ever seen the kind of weird gotta burn down the norms to save the norms kind of nonsense we're seeing from the Democrats? And I think it really started when Nancy Pelosi ripped up the president's speech ostentatiously right behind him after he gave it. And then now we have all these posers screaming about how they're not going to be there. Representative Angie Craig informed the waiting world that she would rather stick forks in her eyes than listen to him. Blah, blah, blah. I find it incredibly damaging that they treat Donald Trump as if he's some sort of interloper unjustly exercising the prerogatives of the president, and that neither he nor the people who elected him have any legitimate claim to his office.
Yeah, so Kurt, this has kind of been like a slow burn over the past, 15, 20 years or so. Barack Obama stared down the members of the Supreme Court and criticized them about the Citizens United decision. Joe Wilson, congressman, Republican congressman from South Carolina, screamed at Obama, "You lie." We've had antics on both sides. And depending on who the president is, it sort of depends on how the parties in Congress react, right? So when it's your president, everybody thinks it's fine. It doesn't matter what he says or does. And everybody's just supposed to sit there and observe decorum and norms as we think of them, over the past half century or more. And then when it's not your president, you decide that whatever the president's doing isn't acceptable, and it's okay for you to behave in ways that are different because you're just being pushed in that direction, by the commander in chief. It's not your fault. What are you supposed to do? You're not just supposed to sit there like a potted plant and applaud. So I find this to be a game. This is not a comment on your point of view, but I'm just saying in my time watching this in Washington, I find it to be a game of shirts and skins. And often in a very heartfelt way. I don't think anybody's cynically saying to themselves, well, this is just what I'm doing now. I just think that sometimes people have perspective about what it is they're doing and when they're doing it.
Well, I mean, Adam Schiff. Just saying. No, I think in retrospect, Joe Wilson, who was kind of an outlier, shouldn't have yelled that. But I think it's something different here. I think Joe Wilson, who shouldn't have yelled, was arguing about a point that Barack Obama made and maybe not making the point when he should have. I see this and other actions by Democrats as impugning the legitimacy of the Trump presidency, as if the normal things that Trump does are somehow abnormal because it's him and he doesn't get to do it, and the people who elected him, like me, don't really have a right to exercise power when they win it legitimately.
Right, and I understand that point of view. I talked to a lot of Trump voters and supporters who feel that way. I can say that I heard a lot of that same thing from voters and supporters of Barack Obama when he was president. Sometimes the complaints were couched a little bit differently. It's because he's the first black president, and a lot of Republicans therefore don't, want to lend the legitimacy that he's earned. My point is that these are sort of long-standing complaints in American politics, and sometimes it's because a president in particular rubs the opposition the wrong way. I mean, let's go back to a simpler time, right? The 1990s when you had a Republican Congress and a Democratic president. But man, Bill Clinton drove Republicans crazy just by the simple fact that he triangulated and cultivated the image as a centrist Democrat. And Republicans were like, this guy's no centrist. This is ridiculous. How come nobody can see through this? And it drove them crazy. Trump has a habit of doing a lot of things that all presidents do, but talking more provocatively, let's say, than some presidents have, and that just drives Democrats crazy. But the thing about the system here is it works. If you can get a bill through Congress, the president can sign it or veto it if he wants. And so this is just sort of part of where we're at right now in terms of the political divisions.
Well, evaluate this contention. I think that the nationalized portion of the midterm campaign begins tonight. I think that Donald Trump, if he is smart, will focus on the economy between now and the election. I think as a supporting effort, he'll finish off Iran and hopefully Cuba too. But the real focus of his campaign, in my opinion, should be on the economy. And guys like me, like I've had a career, I've got my retirement set up, I'm fine and doing better thanks to the stock market. But there are a lot of younger people who and new families that need help, and it's going to take a little time for things for them to turn around. If he can turn that around, I think he does. I think we do pretty well as Republicans in the midterms. What do you think?
Well, look, if the economy turns around such that people feel that it has turned around, that's what you're looking for, right? You're not looking. It's not that the macro indicators don't matter, but the macro indicators can be deceiving because you can have great-looking macro indicators, stock market's booming, et cetera, et cetera. If people don't feel it, then it's not going to do Republicans any good. And I agree with you that the president should focus on the economy. His style is not one of focus, and as his own advisors have said, he's going to say and do what he wants. So we need to do this over here. One thing he should at least try and do, and I believe he should take your advice, and it's just what we see in the polling, is stop saying things like, I want affordability, it's a hoax. It's something that Americans definitely feel. It's why I started reporting on it and even reporting on the terminology, which I first started noticing toward the end of the 2024 campaign that helped him, and at the beginning of last year that began to cause him trouble. And so if he can just not say, I've won, it's not a thing, and just say, I see where you're coming from, and that's why I'm working hard and things are turning around, at least it shows the voters that he understands where they're at, and that's a big deal.
Well, look, not a lot of people know more about what's going on in Washington than our own regular David Drucker. Follow him at David M. Drucker on the Twitter machine. That's the Hindu love gods. Warren Zevon singing a cover of Georgia Satellite's Battleship Chains. Thought I'd talk a little about battleships and carriers and Air Force bombers and the Delta Force and everything. What's happening over in Iran? Now, we're going to talk more about it later with some experts here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. But I just wanted to explain a concept to you. It's a concept from Sun Tzu, an ancient one. And it's the Zheng and Qi. And I my Mandarin's a little rusty, so I'm not sure I've got it perfectly. Zheng and Qi. What is a Zheng? The Zheng is what you see. And what do they see now? They see the laydown of battleships pretty much from the eastern Mediterranean, all around the Red Sea, up around Yemen, outside of the Persian Gulf, hovering around the gates of Hormuz, Straits of Hormuz. They are surrounded to the south and to the east by American naval forces. There are American air assets, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Diego Garcia. Yeah, the British have said, well, you can't use our airfield. Oh, yeah. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? That is the Zheng. That is what you see, right? And it's obvious what you can see and what you do. And the idea of the Zheng is that is what you want the enemy to focus on. The enemy is going to focus on the seaborne forces and the air forces, and be prepared to react to that. What is the Qi? The Qi is what's unseen. It's what's unknown. It's the right cross that came out of nowhere that smacks you across the jaw. Case in point, Operation Desert Storm. They knew we had the Zheng were massive forces right down south below the Iraqi border, or in the Kuwait border. I know, I was there. I was outside vicinity of Hafar al-Batin at 7 Corps main headquarters. That is what they saw, and they knew there were airplanes around. The Qi is how we used them. They didn't see that. They thought we were going to move straight up, but we didn't. We didn't end run around them at the same time using airborne fires from bombers and missiles and stuff to defeat them through the depth of their positions. They didn't see it coming. They focused on the Zheng. They didn't look for the Qi. So here's your question. Here's your homework. And I don't know the answer. I've been out 11 years. I don't know what the answer is, but there is an answer. What's the Qi? What's that hidden right cross that the Iranian mullahs are not expecting while they're focused on the ships and the airplanes? I know what it was for Maduro. That was somebody at his door. Hi, Delta Force. We got a pizza. Let's talk to my pal Jim Hansen, former Green Beret, paratrooper, famous Rush fan, and I don't mean just Limbaugh. Jim, do you feel bad about being? Do you feel bad about being pro-Canadian with a band like Rush, or Rush one of some of the good ones?
Any band that uses Ayn Rand in their lyrics is okay by me.
Well, look, I think the Red Barchetta should have been an EV, and Tom Sawyer should have. I don't want to misgender Tom Sawyer, so enough Rush-based humor. Yeah, wow, we really went down that rabbit hole. Speaking of rabbit holes, you were a Special Forces soldier, and you understand some of the stuff that's going on in a way a lot of regular folks don't. And we got two operations going on right now, one of which is very public. That's the Iran issue. The second, not so much, but I have a feeling that the guys at Camp Pendleton are probably on a pretty short leash right about now, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're close to some very bad things happening that we've been kind of whistling past the graveyard on for a long, long time. I think one of the things that the Trump administration did was, instead of just whistling, they went ahead and designated the cartels and called them the terrorists they are. You can say they're just criminals and whatnot, but the amount of damage that they do, death, destruction, and intimidation of government entities to get what they want makes them firmly in the arena of terrorist groups. And now they're showing just why that's true.
Now, they're able to do kind of widespread demonstrations, fires, that sort of thing. They'll shoot it out eventually. We see a lot of footage. Now, you and I are military guys. We see a lot of footage of, these guys decked out in their battle gear, and there's 12 of them, and they've got AK-47s. And, normal people look at them and go, oh, my gosh, they've got an army. And you and me look at them and go, that's a platoon that probably hasn't trained together in lanes, doesn't have artillery, radio, comm support, ISR, any of the logistics, any of the other things that actually make them a modern military force. How are the random groups of sicarios who've gone down to the local 511 store and bought a bunch of equipment different from actual combat formations?
It's quite a bit easier to slaughter civilians, to slaughter government officials, to kill your enemies in their bed than it is to go force on force with anybody who knows how to fight. These guys have never fought. They're doing some things right now that are military-ish, military adjacent, but not really the same thing. So I think as soon as the Mexicans decide how they want to handle this with their forces, and we decide what pieces of this actually matter to us, they're going to die in bunches, and it'll be good for everybody.
Without revealing anything, you and I are both long retired. Does the United States have a military training relationship or an actual operational relationship with Mexican forces that we know from public sources?
We do. I don't know how public it is, but there's always been training because of the border. There's always been a connectivity with the Mexicans. It's been degraded over the past 5 to 10 years. You could probably say after Trump went ahead and told them you can't just let everybody who comes from the South walk into America, and park in Mexico until they get ready to come in. So the whole thing has gone a little bit south, and now we may be going a little bit south to clean up the mess that's been brewing there. And there are elements of the Mexican forces who we will interoperate with.
One last question on Mexico. If they do something really stupid, and they generally haven't since the fallout from murdering a DEA agent Enrique Camarena 40 years ago, I think they learned their lesson. But should they go and kill a bunch of Americans stuck in Puerto Vallarta, what happens to them?
Yeah, it's a fortune of their geography that they live right next to the most productive and greatest country in the world, but it's also a responsibility. You don't get to be the dirtbags of the neighborhood, allow cartels to operate, and in many cases, it looks like the government has been deeply involved with getting paid, allowing it, and through fear, intimidation, or just greed, let this fester. They need to clean that up. If they do not do that in an effective way, there are a lot of pipe hitters on our side of the border who would be perfectly willing to go ahead and teach those people a lesson and square things away.
Let's shift to the other side of the globe. Right now, we see the forces accumulating. Naval forces, about a third of our surface fleet is off within striking distance of Iran. We have major aviation assets from the Air Force as well. That would be, you remember the Sun Tzu concept, the zheng and the qi. The zheng is the force you see and that you expect the enemy to focus on. The qi is that kind of right cross, that hidden knife you don't expect, the stiletto. What's the qi here? What are the Iranians not seeing that's going to knock them on their 7th century savage tails?
I would bet, I don't have a specific target. I've said a couple times, I think hitting Karg Island, their oil terminal, which would basically shut down their economy, is a very simple way to go ahead and not have to expend a lot of resources and make them all feel the pain. But I think the Israelis have some ideas about how to make this more effective, fly some more missiles through people's bedroom windows, things like that. I doubt there will be the massive Armageddon-like attack at first. I think President Trump's going to end up having to show them something, and it'll be a like you said, a punch they're not expecting to try and get their attention before this goes big.
You look at Karg Island, there is another option rather than leveling it. We could take it. We have Marines, we have Naval Special Forces. There's something to be said from taking their ground, not only to have physical possession of it, but imagine the humiliation of these barbarian, apocalyptic, jihadi creeps having the infidels go snatch their most prized possession, and they can't do a thing about it. So you're fighting not only on the military side, but you've got economic and information impacts just by grabbing that refinery.
There is a 4-star admiral, he's since passed, named Ace Lyons, who suggested that during the hostage crisis in 1979, when the Iranians actually took our embassy and the 52 hostages. That was his suggestion right there. And it's still as good an idea as it was. It's messy. There are things you have to deal with. They could shoot a bunch of missiles. I mean, the funny thing is you send the SEALs in, they take it. We damage a few valves so they can't use it for a while or whatever. And then they DD Mao out. And the Iranians hit it back and destroy it themselves. So that would be one of those Jedi mind tricks I could get behind.
Look, any plan that Jimmy Carter wouldn't adopt is presumptively good.
Exactly.
Last question, and we got about 30 seconds. You were in the Special Forces community. Without being specific about anything, because we don't want to compromise anything, is there a role for American ground special forces in this operation beyond Karg Island?
I think there is definitely a role if we decide that this is no longer negotiations and we're trying to topple them for maybe CIA paramilitary and potentially SF on the border provinces, arming them to start a ruckus. Not in trying to get into the cities and do messy stuff.
That would be too bad if the Iranian mullahs were overthrown and subject to the justice of their people. I'd be all broken up. I'm Kurt Schlichter, one of my favorite people in the world, novelist, columnist, author, Michael Walsh. His most recent book, A Rage to Conquer. You must get it. Michael, I want to talk to you about the American hockey team, but first I want to talk to you about your dad, who's a legit American hero.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he passed away just short of his 100th birthday earlier this month. So he got buried with full Marine Corps honors. He's a veteran, as you know, Kurt, and as readers of my book, Last Stands, know, he is a veteran of the Chosin War, the Chosin Reservoir campaign during the Korean War. As well as many other battles in Korea, including the Incheon Landing and the battles of Seoul, and also served in Vietnam and served as a military attaché to the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization in the 1960s, I believe, when we were living in Hawaii. So he lived a very long and full life, and he was healthy right up to the end and died after a very short illness, 2 days. So he went out peacefully, and he went out like a Roman, which is all any of us can ask for.
Well, look, you wrote about him in the last chapter of your prior book, Last Stands, and I think it's the best thing you've ever written, and I read everything you've read. In fact, you actually allowed me to read it when it's still in the pre-publication today, and it just knocked my socks off. Whenever I'm down on myself, I'm like, you got to try harder, because you got to try to do what Michael did. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thanks. You can imagine what it was like growing up with him. And I said at his eulogy, as the oldest of the 5 children, he raised us to never give up and always fight for what you believe in and what's right, and just keep on keeping on. And I told the assembled group that was there to observe his passing that we were Catholics first, Marines second, and Irish third. But I discovered among his papers that we're also American Indians, that on his mother's side, there is a line of French-Canadian Micmac Indians from Nova Scotia that goes back unbroken to the 17th century. So I knew my great-grandmother on that side, and she spoke Acadian French, not Quebecois. And so this line of the family is very interesting for me as a historian and a genealogist. So I will be pursuing that in the summer when I can get up to Nova Scotia and actually see where that branch of the family originated.
Well, it'll be exciting to have a family Thanksgiving with Elizabeth Warren in attendance. So
yes,
you got that going for you.
I am more Indian than Elizabeth Warren, that's for sure.
Well, look, your father sounds like a normal American, which means he'd be thrilled that the American men's team and the American women's team both won gold medals at the Winter Olympics against Canada, no less, which just makes it all the more sweeter, like vintage maple syrup. What do you make of this bizarre hatred of these young men who are excited about their victory, excited about winning one for their country, and this line of frigid SSRI gobbling, Chardonnay swilling harridans has nothing to say except whine, complain, and nag about it?
Well, I just want to say, to tie this in with my dad, he was outstanding in many sports, very famous New England high school football player, but most of all a hockey player. So having grown up in San Diego and Honolulu, I had no idea what ice skates were, and I've never been on a pair of ice skates, but apparently he was very good. And so now we have this Canadian element in the family too. I would say he'd be very, very happy. He was a huge sports fan. He watched sports right up to the end, and hockey was the great love of his life. As far as these Karens are concerned, Hugh, I'm older than you. I've been around these people for more than half a century, and they are unfortunately mostly baby boomers who have then transmitted through the female branch of the family this woke mind virus, and it's got to be stamped out. And there's many possible solutions to this thing, and one is to just let it die out with us, which I think is probably the easiest thing. But we have a group of people in this country, and it skews female very heavily, and this is not a misogynistic remark, it's the truth, that they are frustrated, angry, hostile, always unhappy, constantly miserable. And you can't imagine why this is true, because they live lives of supreme luxury that would make a Roman emperor blush with envy. And yet they just can't seem to accept yes for an answer. So it's a real, real problem in the United States. It's a luxury problem that first world countries have, but it's very dangerous because with their attitudes towards abortion and this so-called gender affirming care, which will be outlawed and hated on, like the way we hate Dr. Mengele today, we will hate these doctors who did this to these children. But they advocate every screwball idea that is anti-Western and anti-male as a matter of course. It is a religion to them, and it needs to go away. Michael
Walsh, I think you really put your finger on it when you talk about a religion, because they have to perform public acts of contrition, public sacraments, because if they were at all cunning, if they were at all trying to persuade rather than to demonstrate their own performative faith, they would fake it. Oh, yay, America won a hockey game. Now let's redistribute the wealth. But they can't even do that. Last week, Michael, they sided with foreign invaders demanding that we get rid of our dogs.
Yes.
I mean, it's, you know, when you consistently choose the 20 side of the 80-20 issues, you're not concerned with winning. What are you concerned with?
Well, they can't help themselves. But I would say this, as you know, as you mentioned kindly, Kurt, my first two books in the military history series, Last Stands and A Rage to Conquer. Well, I'm about 2/3 of the way through the final book, which is called The Wrath of God, and it's about religious warfare, mostly among the Semitic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and how they have affected our lives and what happens when one side beats the other side. But what you learn from history is that there is no culture that is atheistic. None, zero. So now that the Karens have succeeded in trying to transform the United States into a sort of secular, humanist, atheistic polity, other cultures rush in to take advantage of that. And Islam in particular is very, very potent. And one of the things people don't understand, because they say, well, how could the Christians have fought among each other? How could the Arabs have won so easily in the 7th and 8th centuries? And the answer was there was a vacuum into which they rushed. And in the lands of the Christians and the Jews in the Middle East, they were very often welcomed as liberators from either Christian orthodoxy or some other sectarian difference. So at first, the population welcomed them because they were going to liberate them from the oppression that they were feeling from the Byzantines or the Sassanids.
Well, that sounds a little familiar, Michael Walsh. The language of oppression.
Well, that's where we are.
Thank you very much, Michael Walsh. Go get his book, A Rage to Conquer, and his fantastic previous book, Last Stand. Guest host Kurt Schlichter, where it's always Gen X O'Clock for the bumper music. That's the Psychedelic Furs with Pretty in Pink, one of my favorite songs ever. I think Psychedelic Furs may be my the band I've seen in concert most. I've seen them countless times. They do in fact rock, if you're wondering. Richard Butler and the gang, and they're still out there doing it at local state fairs and things. And I suggest you go check them out if you can, because Pretty in Pink, great song, evokes us a time of success, of prosperity, of American glory, of Miami Vice. We're coming back to a new golden age, folks. We're coming back to this new golden age. Remember, the last one under Ronald Reagan started with a hockey team victory and went up from there. I'm just saying. Just saying. AndrewandTodd.com. More proof that things are getting better. Interest rates are coming down. They're coming down, and they are doing great. You can get a mortgage nice and cheap, like I have. Give them a call, AndrewandTodd.com. That's AndrewandTodd.com, 800-888-1172. Now, cell phones. Consumer Cellular. You've heard Hugh talk a lot about them. How you made a switch, how you can switch your carrier, save money without a sacrifice. That's because Consumer Cellular uses the same towers as the major carriers. Make the switch today. Get $25 off consumercellular.com/Hugh. And if you're over 50, get one line of unlimited talk, text, and data for $35. Plus an additional $5 off a month for your first 5 months when you visit consumercellular.com/Hugh. And you use the promo code. That's Hugh25. Consumer Cellular ranks #1 for network coverage and consumer satisfaction, according to ACSI. You'll be working with an actual human being when you switch, based right here in the USA, so you can understand them. And you can understand whoever you're talking to on Consumer Cellular, using the same equipment, same towers as everybody else. It's a fantastic deal. Get one line of unlimited talk, text, and data, $35 a month. You have $5 extra a month off for the first 5 months. Think of all the cash you'll be saving. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. Promo code Hugh25, or give them a call. 1-800-411-4454. Let's talk something near and dear to my heart. Grilling. Best Hot Grill. BestHotGrill.com has the products you need to stay warm, eat well when it's cold outside. Turn your wood-burning fireplace into a source of emergency heat with Rasmussen Chill Busters, vent-free gas logs, and alternative vent fireballs. No electricity. No, just natural gas or propane. And they will keep your family warm if the power goes out. If it's cold outside, you can keep grilling with a Solaire infrared gas grill. I've had one. They're great. Solaire infrared burners heat up in just 3 minutes. They perform equally well in the cold weather as they do in the heat of summer. And they will grill food faster than you can believe. The intense heat results in the juiciest food you'll ever taste off a grill. So, keep your family warm and well-fed even when it's frigid outside. Go to BestHotGrill.com to compete with the personalized log sizing form. Or order a Solaire demo rental grill so you can test drive these things. So you can try before you buy. That's BestHotGrill.com. Stay warm with Solaire infrared and Rasmussen gas logs and fireballs at BestHotGrill.com. My governor is an idiot. My governor is a buffoon. Here he is on cut number 4. Behold.
And for those that don't know Willie Brown, you wouldn't know Kamala Harris without Willie Brown.
Wait, what? Remember, this is the same place where he just said to a black audience, I'm as dumb as you guys are. And I wish I was, like, really paraphrasing, but he kind of said that. And they're leftists, and I go, no, it wasn't an African-American audience. There were many white people in it, too. Go look at the video. You can look at the video. Don't believe me. Don't believe me about anything. But if you have any doubts that Gavin Newsom would say something so transcendently stupid, what he just said, you wouldn't know Kamala Harris. If it weren't for Willie Brown, you wouldn't know Kamala Harris. Not a compliment. Maybe he's trying to kneecap her because she's ahead.
Kamala Harris.
Well, he knew Kamala. He knew Kamala Harris. Wink, wink. Of course, that's Motorhead's cover of David Bowie's classic Heroes, and it rocks. And of course, so does my next guest, America's #1 Motorhead superfan. It's Byron York of the Washington Examiner, their chief political correspondent, and one of my favorite people in this business. Welcome, Byron.
What a great introduction. I'm a Motorhead superfan.
Byron, I've been waiting for this because I've got so many things to throw at you. We could go an hour. Let's start with the hockey team. In what universe did the Democrats get together and decide it would be a great idea, or the leftists really, that would be a great idea to come down foursquare against happy American athletes who just won a stunning upset victory?
I don't know where the Central Committee was meeting on that one. It's really extraordinary. And if you're history minded, and you put the 1980 victory, which was over the Soviet Union, so it was a different character, but still, it was this incredible victory, totally unexpected by the United States, not favored to win. And so, if you put that with this, it's just extraordinary that you have this group of people who are upset that the American hockey team won, and B, they seem to be a bunch of patriotic guys.
But it seems it's either dumb or psychotic. I mean, even if you were the most cynical political operator, you might look at it and say, "Yay, America!" Just take it off the table. They can't do that.
Yeah, they could have kind of a memo to Democrats saying, now, you may not know this, but many of the American people are patriotic, and you don't want to offend them. So when there is an instance like this, a national celebration, perhaps you should try not to dump on it. You would think, but no.
Are these lunatics simply going to vapor lock during this 250th anniversary? Are we going to see, prominent Democrats stand up and demand that Donald Trump make a land acknowledgement before celebrating our 250? It's bizarre. It's so dumb. I understand it's crazy, but it's also dumb.
It's actually the idea of a land acknowledgement before the State of the Union would be be pretty funny.
Well, knowing Donald Trump, he'd come out. Many people are saying that this was the greatest military conquering thing of all time. Many people are saying it could be amazing. What do you think? How do you think the State of the Union is going to go tonight? Are we going to get cautious, calm Trump, or are we going to get wild, riffing Trump?
Well, look, I think you're going to get a bit of a combination, and it's going to go very long. The last one was, is that 99? His longest is 99 minutes.
Oh.
So, there's always the record, go for 100. So I expect it to be a pretty long speech tonight where the president has, very nicely crafted scripted set pieces that he occasionally reads and then begins to ad lib between. So I would expect it to be a standard, Trump State of the Union speech. But you have to remember also, and this has nothing to do with Trump in particular, State of the Union speeches are generally not remembered for very long. They're really long. They're kind of cool events because you see, essentially the whole government, put together in one place. So that's really nice to see. But as far as a speech with substance and all that, not really that big a deal.
Might he try to use this, Byron York, as the start point of the nationalized version of the midterm campaigns? Might he could set his markers. Hey, the economy is doing great. We're taking out the heads of the five families, starting with Maduro. Mullah's your next.
Well, look, if he gives a great speech, that's going to be a great thing for Republicans in the midterms. If it were actually memorable and a great speech, that would be a great thing for Republicans. But, like I said, I don't think it's going to be that memorable. But it would be a good place to stress the midterm agenda on the cost of living. Because, all we've been talking about lately has been Iran. And before we were talking a lot about Venezuela. And these are not subjects that midterm voters care very much about.
Well, Byron York, I'm looking at the Dow Jones. It's up 370 points right now. I was a lawyer for 30 years. I got my retirement accounts. I got my house. I'm doing okay. Younger people are really feeling this economy. They're not. The numbers say it's improving, but they're not feeling it yet. Do you think that people start feeling the good feelings in sufficient time for the Republicans to avoid a wipeout in November?
Yeah, if you listen to the Secretary of the Treasury and to the President, they will. And a lot of these bigger tax refunds, other provisions of the big, beautiful bill will be kicking in, and that will show. But what can you say? You can't predict these things. And history, as you know, and I'm sure all of our listeners know, history really argues against the president's party during midterms. The only time a president's party has picked up seats during midterms since the New Deal has been George W. Bush in 2002 and Bill Clinton in 1998. Both of which were very special and very different reasons.
Well, look, history's definitely against us, but Donald Trump did become the first non-consecutive president in about a century or so. So,
well, that's absolutely true. And Susie Wiles clearly thinks that a nationalized election with Trump at the center of it can win for Republicans. So, we'll just have to see. A lot of factors are operating against the Republican Party right now. But I think everybody in the party would be pretty happy if the president seemed to be kicking off midterms tonight.
Well, Byron York of the Washington Examiner, their chief political consultant or correspondent, thank you very much for coming on the Hugh Hewitt Show. That's the English Beat with Tears of the Clown, or of a Clown. Speaking of a clown, cut number one.
They're all running, and this is just a downright clown car at this point on the Democratic side. I mean, just take a look here. Top choices for the 2028 Dem-Pres nominee. You have a leader, but it's not really a clear leader. It's within the margin of error. You have Newsom at 19%. Then you have former Vice President Kamala Harris at 18%. Quite a weak number for her, given that, of course, she was the nominee last time around. Pete Buttigieg, who, of course, has run before, 13%. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at 12%. This is just a total clown car. It is a total mess. There is no clear front runner at this particular point on the Democratic side. Who the heck knows who the nominee is going to be in 2 years?
It's been a long time since we've
Well,
had
that's
a
Harry
Democratic...
Itten of CNN explaining that the Democrat candidates for 2028 constitute a clown car. And, boy, they certainly do. Gavin Newsom's doing as much as he can to make people laugh, right, Dwayne?
Yeah, he is. The one thing about that Harry Enten clip is an old friend of mine, Jim Talent, has told me many times that you can't beat something with nothing. And they may not like Trump, and they may not like Vance, and they may not like whatever the Republicans have to offer, but you can't beat something with nothing. And right now, what is the Democrats' national message and strategy? What are they for right now?
I hate Trump, which is a difficult message during an election where there is no Trump.
One, it's a hard message to sell, especially. You think there's going to be a handful of people in this country that come April 15th have a little more money in their pocket than they did last April 15th?
Well, there are. I'm not going to be among them, but there are.
But there's going to be a bunch of people that didn't have to pay anywhere near as much in income tax as they did the year before. And so the message is still, I hate Trump. I don't think it's going to work long term. I mean, it might. There could be Trump fatigue. I get it, but honestly, you got to run on something. And what they seem to be running on is we still want people that don't know who they are to have access to whatever bathrooms they want, or else. And we want to make sure that nobody else that is committing crimes here illegally, illegal in the country committing crimes, that nobody else gets booted out of the country. We want them to stay right here. That's not a winning message. I don't know what's going to work.
Last week they got mad because somebody said, no, we're not giving up our dogs because foreigners don't like them.
Right. And now their front runner says to African Americans that, I'm just as dumb as you are because I can't read. Okay, that's
a take.
That's certainly a bumper sticker slogan.
Well, yeah, on a Yugo, a 1992 Yugo with body rust. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter, retired United States Army colonel, trial lawyer for 30 years in Los Angeles. I am the senior columnist at townhall.com. You should check out everything I write. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I've got new columns up, and they are provocative and not profane. Well, maybe a little. I don't have to be FCC compliant there, but I certainly do here. And that's not going to be a problem now because I've got somebody I've wanted to talk to for a long time here. I've got former RNC head, current North Carolina candidate for the Senate for the Republican Party, Michael Watley. Welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
It's good to be on with you, Kurt.
Okay, let's get right into it. You know this is a sophisticated audience. You know this is a smart audience who we know your policies. I want to talk logistics. I want to talk administration. I want to talk the things that win the battles. And you were there in the trenches. Let's talk nationally, then let's talk about your campaign. As a former RNC chairman, how do the Republican Party candidates go about foiling the tides of history, because the tides of history are against us. We should lose seats, according to history, in the midterms. How do we keep from doing that?
There's two things. There's a how and there's a why, right? Let's talk about the why. The fact is that Republican candidates win when they listen to the voters, when they understand the issues that the voters care about, and they put real solutions on the table. That's what President Trump is doing right now. He's leading the most transformative presidential term in our lifetime, and he is rebuilding our economy. He has restored our southern border. He's keeping our communities safer. And he also is making sure that we are taking care of the men and women in uniform who are protecting our interests and our allies around the world, right? So when you focus on those issues that the voters care about, that gives you a tremendous leg up. When we talk about the how, that really is when it gets into making sure that you're having that conversation with the voters often enough so that they understand what you're doing. The president, with his State of the Union tonight, he needs to draw out that conversation and connect the dots between what he's doing and the impacts that we're going to see. The fact that they passed the one big beautiful bill with Trump's middle class tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on overtimes, no tax on Social Security. Those are great sound bites, but the impact is going to be when people file their taxes this year, they're going to get dramatically bigger, refunds. That is a real world impact. That's what's going to matter in the elections.
Okay, let me analyze what you did. I'm putting on my Colonel hat again. What you've said is Donald Trump's doing great things with the implied task of candidates tying themselves to Donald Trump. Look at what the enemy's doing. The enemy seems to be making it all about Donald Trump. Donald Trump appears to be the decisive ground during this fight. Am I assessing it correctly?
I think you are. And the fact is the Democrats that are in Congress right now have no agenda other than opposing Trump. When you think about what the Democrats ran on back in 2024, it was open borders, inflationary spending, and a weak, woke America. That didn't sell with the American people. That's why we have a Republican in the White House. That's why we have a Republican House and a Republican Senate. And to this day, the Democrats are still doubling down on that same failed agenda. My opponent, Roy Cooper, is a card-carrying member of the woke mob, and he has doubled down on stupid because he is absolutely taking every one of these policy positions that led Kamala Harris to defeat last year and picking them up and making those his issues.
Now, in the terms of this fight, it looks to me like if Donald Trump, because of his policies, is popular, we'll do fine. If he's unpopular, we won't. I think the central issue determining his popularity is not that he's making jokes with the hockey guys, although I think people like seeing him hang with the hockey guys. And I don't think it's even taken out the heads of the fine families like Maduro and the mullahs and Cuba. I think it's going to be the economy, and the economy's doing fine for those of us who've done fine already. I think a lot of this is going to depend on whether in July, early August, people who have taken the short end of the stick because of the Biden economy and have not felt a recovery yet, if they're not feeling a recovery, I think we're going to have a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think that's very conventional wisdom, and it's conventional for a reason, right? It is every election comes down to kitchen table issues. The fact is, in 2024, we ran on affordability. I gave over 500 TV interviews last year in 2024 talking about housing prices, grocery prices, gasoline prices, and inflation. What we saw was President Trump or Biden drove this country directly into a ditch. And right now, the Republicans in the House, the Republicans in the Senate, and President Trump are working every day to get us out of that ditch. And we're seeing signs that the economy is starting to roll. Hundreds of thousands of private sector jobs are being created. Real wages are up year over year. GDP is growing. Inflation is down. Gasoline prices are down. But we're certainly not ready to hang out a mission accomplished, banner yet. We've got a lot of work to do, and that economy is going to be a driving factor for us in 2026. Now, look, I think we're going to be fine because I do see the signs of growth in the economy, but that's going to be a real big factor.
Now, you mentioned the conventional wisdom is the economy. I would agree. I think that's what everyone's going to focus on. What's the thing we're not seeing? What's the thing that Republicans can do that's going to surprise the Democrats and put them off balance as the midterms
the biggest issue that we're seeing here in North Carolina is crime. The fact that my opponent, Roy Cooper, was the most, pro-crime, governor that we've ever had in North Carolina. And we see efforts all across the country to support the rioters, to support illegal aliens, to support criminals, to put them back on the streets again and again and again. And really, when we look at what President Trump has done, cleaning up Washington, D.C., stopping the riots out in Los Angeles, and making sure that he's taking, fentanyl off the streets. He's taking criminals off the street. We've seen deaths from fentanyl are way down. We've seen the murder rate is down at historic lows. It's very important, that every family, what they ultimately want is to get married, buy a house, raise a family, and know that their kids are going to be able to go get an education and grow up safe. And that's what President Trump is fighting for. It's a common sense agenda, and that really is going to define this election cycle.
Well, you have arguably the most critical Senate race in the country, Michael Watley. You're going up against Tar Heel Spanberger, a fake moderate who's as left comes. And believe me, I'm from California. I know. I get it. How are you going to take this guy out, not just on policy? We know you got the right policies. Where are you going to attack him where he's weak? What parts of the new North Carolina electorate are you going to target that maybe people haven't activated before? Or maybe you're going to use a base strategy. How do you intend to win?
Well, we're going to win by going out and talking to every single community. When I was the state party chair for 5 years, I made a point to have events in every single one of our 100 counties every single year. My truck has 380,000 miles on it right now because we have driven around the state. I've already visited 77 of our 100 counties since I launched the campaign last August. And it really does come down to having those conversations with every single community and making sure that they understand that you're fighting for them. You're not fighting for the interests in California, New York, and Illinois like Roy Cooper is.
Well, what percentage of Roy Cooper's money is coming from out of state?
It's overwhelming. I mean, the fact is, that he is going to raise a ton of money. Democrats always raise a ton of money. Kamala Harris outspent us on the President Trump's campaign by over $1 billion. The fact is that good policy is good politics, and you got to have obviously enough money, and then you need to be able to go out there and have that conversation with every single voting group and every single community across the state.
Michael Watley, how do we only have about 15 seconds left. How do Hugh Hewitt listeners help you out to win that critical seat in North Carolina?
Well, they can certainly donate to us at michaelwatley.com. That's going to be the most critical factor. And they can follow me at @WatleyNC on X.
Thank you, Michael Watley. Take him down. Roy Cooper needs to go find a job in the private sector. It's my pleasure to bring you another segment of Hugh's in-depth interview with talk radio legend Dennis Prager about Dennis's new book, If There Is No God.
But I didn't know that you would tell the story. It's in the book, and it's a fabulous anecdote. And it, by the way, for those listening, it cost $34,000 for a Metajet from L.A. to where Dennis is. And good for them, and they've done a service for everyone. Last question, Dennis. It's actually one of your statements from page 141. People are not basically good, and they are not basically bad. We are a mixture of both. I think we can take that to the bank. Is the age-old struggle to make the former bigger and more powerful in our life than the latter?
Yeah, that's it. You hit it, Hugh. And I'm very touched that you read the book.
It's a
but
fabulous
you hit
book.
it.
It's absolutely. By the way, how did you find the effort or the strength to do this project? I know you had help from your wonderful family and from Joel, but it's not what would be on my mind if I was in recovery like you are.
Well, it might be because that's what gives you the strength to persevere. Sorry for the breathing. That's what I've been working on for 14 months.
You
That's
sound
what the
fabulous,
doctors-
Dennis. They had me worried that this would be like an edit problem. This is not an edit problem. You sound fabulous. When are you going to get back on the radio?
That's my plan. Absolutely.
Dennis Prager, the book "Is There No God" is assisted by Joel Alperson, and I've talked to Joel. How does someone get a friend like Joel? You're blessed, my friend, but how do you end up with a friend like Joel?
I am blessed. I have friends like Joel. You know Alan Estrin, for example.
Of course.
Who came up with the idea of PragerU. I will say, it's one of the few times I brag, I attract exceptional people into my life. I always have. And it truly is a blessing. You know, the most common phrase that people at airports or in restaurants would come over and say to me would be, "God bless you." And my response for years has been, "He has."
Huh.
And that's
well,
one
that
of the
raises
things.
one more question, and I promise it's the last. My wonderful wife knows your wonderful wife, and she's always asking me, "How is Dennis's wife?" Because of course our family and your boys and your grandkids and everybody. How is your family, but especially your wife, doing through this long period of recovery?
Her answer to that question is, "I'm doing as well as Dennis."
Oh.
It's a very thought-filled answer.
Yes,
which
it is.
Yeah, and I want you to know that I feel as bad, and I think sometimes worse, for Sue than for me. As I said to Sue when I regained consciousness, "You didn't sign up for this."
Huh.
And
well,
that's
neither
how
did
I
you,
feel.
Dennis, but I'm going to say to you, I think your example of resilience, persistence, recovery will absolutely inspire millions, as the book, If There Is No God, will inspire young people, youth pastors, youth rabbis, and parents and teachers. Go out and get If There Is No God, because it can have a powerful impact of the trajectory of your kids and their young adults in your life. And Dennis's example is a powerful inspiration for all of us. Dennis Prager, my friend, it makes my month to talk to you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon and to hearing you back on broadcast as soon as health and recovery permits. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you.
Well, that was Hugh Hewitt's conversation with Dennis Prager. Let me add a personal note. I've met Dennis a number of times. What an inspirational man, a true radio legend. And the least surprising thing about this tragic turn of events is the fact that he has come out of it not wallowing in self-pity, but creating a book like If There Is No God, designed to help people, to help them grow, to help them connect with the Lord. It is it's a testament to his personal character that he's come back like this, and we hope his recovery continues. There's another guy out there who's also inspirational in his own way. His name's Jack Hughes. He's a hockey player, and he just won a gold medal along with his the men's team, and the women's team won also against Canada this weekend. And you know, a lot of people talk bad about young people. I don't talk bad about young people as a group because I led them as an Army officer. But let's hear what Jack Hughes had to say. Cut 5.
But the best part is for, like I was saying this, the day of the gold medal, it's for all the guys that have come before us, and you know, all the young kids that are going to come after us. So just like, you know, when I was a kid, I was growing up dreaming of being where I'm at now, and in 10 years there's going to be another Austin Matthews, there's going to be another Matthew Tkachuk, and another Quinn Hughes. So that's why we play, and we want to, you know, leave USA Hockey in a better place than it was when we first got there.
It's not about him. It's not about Jack Hughes. He's not a prima donna. He's part of the team. And that team won. And the team won for America. And look at that. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you can see it. Legendary picture of, draped in American flag, broken out tooth. He doesn't care. He won. Victory. I saw that with young Americans when I was in the service. I don't worry about young Americans. I really don't. And I'm not Pollyannish. Look, I mean, they've got terrible music, okay? My music, my generation's music, the best. And Dwayne will agree with me on that. We may not agree on the particulars, but our genre is the best of music. But these young people, they may be misguided about their rock. But man, when it comes down to it, these guys perform, and they perform on the rink, they perform out on the ice, and they perform in battle. And we're seeing that right now. Those young Americans out there surrounding our ancient enemy, Iran's mullahs, we've been at for 46 years. Most of my entire adult life. These guys have been killing Americans. Now it's time to deal. And young Americans are the ones who are going to bring this home. Old guys like me, man, if they got to call me back to active duty, we're in real trouble. So I got faith. I got faith in young Americans. I got faith in their strength and their patriotism. A lot of leftists don't. A lot of leftists want to tell you we're all going to hell. Well, all I have to say is, you first. That's the Clash with London's Burning. It's because I didn't have a song called Mexico's Burning. So that's any excuse to play the Clash, right? Let's listen to Caroline Levitt on Fox News and her stern warning to the cartels about the fire they're playing with. That would be cut 8.
Secretary Rubio and the State Department are absolutely on it. We hear from Americans directly who are in Mexico because the State Department immediately set up 24/7 phone lines, and they're taking hundreds of calls a day, providing Americans on the ground with travel support and advice. The State Department also has issued new travel advisories, and they'll continue to update those as the situation progresses. So we encourage all Americans in Mexico to, of course, adhere to the guidance provided by the State Department. Right now, we are unaware of any reports of any Americans being hurt, kidnapped, or killed, and the Mexican drug cartels know not to lay a finger on a single American, or they will pay severe consequences under this president. And they already are. This operation, which was carried out successfully by the Mexican authorities, was, of course, supported by the United States, would not have happened without the leadership of President Trump. He has made it a day one priority to target and go after these vicious drug cartels that have shipped deadly poison to our country for far too long. He signed an executive order to rightfully designate them as foreign terrorist organizations. We've seen the president take unilateral lethal action against drug boats sailing through the Caribbean. And now, of course, we are coordinating and cooperating and pushing the Mexican government to do more to end the scourge of deadly drugs coming through our United States southern border, which, of course, is now secure thanks to President Trump.
So let's do a thought experiment here. What if President Eggplant, Joe Biden, was still allegedly president? And the Mexican government managed to kill this major trafficker, El Mencho. What do you think, with American help? Because clearly we were operating behind the scenes. She was hinting at it. Clearly we were providing intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, maybe other assets. What do you think the cartel would have done? Remember, the alleged president had left the border open for 4 years. He had allowed the cartels to enrich themselves, not only shipping poisonous fentanyl into the country, which killed tens of thousands of Americans, but also millions of illegal aliens. It takes a piece of every one of them. You don't cross the border unless you pay the cartels, right? They understood weakness. They pushed. If El Mencho had been killed while Joe Biden was allegedly president, and I'm not sure he would have been, I don't think there's any serious doubt that the cartels would have attempted to focus on Americans, perhaps in Mexico, as a means of demonstrating back off because they smell the weakness. They could see the weakness of the Biden administration. Now, fast forward to today. It's been 2 days since El Mencho was killed by Mexican authorities. Puerto Vallarta, lots of little fires, some killings. They've killed a couple dozen Mexican soldiers and police. But they haven't hurt any Americans. It's not a secret where the Americans are. They know where the Americans are. They could have gone there any time. They could have shown the Americans, you mess with us, we're going to hurt Americans. Why haven't they? Why haven't they played this Trump card? Because it's a Trump card. Because of Trump. Because Trump will freaking kill them. And in so many different ways. We have, Marines at Camp Pendleton who could do non-combatant evacuation operations to bring the Americans out. Or even go into the city. We have drones that can hunt them down. The drones have been taking out the drug boats. We have special forces. Do you think you want to be a Mencho 2 Electric Boogaloo, the guy who took over? And hear that knock on the door? Delta Force Pizza. Extra lead. I don't think so. I don't think you want to be that guy. I think the cartels did not survive as long as they did by being dumb. They survived by being cunning and brutal. They got the brutality part down. That part's easy. They're also smart enough not to pull the dragon's tail. Because the dragon breathes fire. You kill an American, and Trump gets to take the gloves off. You kill an American, and you give us exactly what we need to close these cartels down for bueno. Now I'm joined by the easiest guest who ever shows up on the Hugh Hewitt Show, James Lilacs. All I have to do is say, James, throw out a topic, and I just sit back and enjoy a little coffee. James, the hockey team and the leftist eruption there that followed. Boom.
What, I gotta do all your work for you here? That's all I am? Drop a nickel in me and let me sing? Oh, the hockey team. Yes, well, I'm very close to Canada, as a matter of fact, and just this week we got a lot of really cold air courtesy of Canada because there's a knot between them and us to stop it. But I love Canada. I always have. However, I've been enjoying myself by hearing some of the terms that Americans are coming up now for the Canadians. My favorite being the Syrupians, as in maple syrup, and Europeans. The Syrupians are unhappy because they lost this. And while if America had lost this, I was happy. It was sort of like going back to the days we beat the Ruskies. Apparently the Canadians are filling the Ruski slot now when it comes to Olympic hockey. USA, the miracle. But if we'd lost, life would go on. I don't think we would be challenged or shattered as a nation down to the pith and the core of our soul. But the Canadians are taking this very, very hard. Elbows up. They were supposed to beat us. They were supposed to show that their goodness and decency trumps the fascist state down here in every instance, and didn't work out so well for them. So we'll forget about it in a couple of days. It seems like a psychic wound, which will take, 4 years to heal until we meet again.
Well, what about our leftist friends who discovered that the very worst thing possible, the ultimate crime, is to celebrate an American victory? Because after all, we're a genocidal country built on slavery, living on stolen land.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe you're referring to a HuffPost piece. Somebody in the HuffPost said, boy, if waving all those flags and chanting USA makes you feel uncomfortable, you're not alone. Oh, I know you're not alone. That's no news to me there. Whether or not this is a widespread sentiment and people from the center left onwards, I don't know. I do know that it's, the only time that we can probably, wave a flag is in a certain set of prescribed circumstances in which we are doing something that is not in the national self-interest or does not celebrate the country in any way. I really want to sit these people down and just say, All right, here's the thing. If you were unhappy about the national reaction to the hockey victory, I got to warn you about this thing coming up called the 250th anniversary of the country, because I'm thinking there might be a few flags out there. There might be a few people with red hats or waving. There might be people of whom you disagree on a spiritual, fundamental, philosophical level who are not walking around with long po faces feeling ashamed for themselves and what the country has done. There's going to be a lot of happy people on the 4th of July. Maybe, like my dog, you'd best stay indoors, not listen to the fireworks. My dog takes a Dramamine, so the 4th doesn't bug him that much. I think it's time for a national prescription of extra strength Dramamine for what these people are going to have to go through. But to tell you the truth, here in Minnesota, which is a hockey hotbed, we're not really talking about it that much because we have a brand new scandal on our hands, and that's chewing up the headlines today. Would you like to know what that is?
I would like to leer more.
Yes. Well, you will indeed leer more, because leering, of course, was part of the Leering Center, which was first we had the feeding the kids, the feeding our future, our families scandal, which they didn't feed anybody. And then there's the Leering Center, which was the daycare scandal, in which there was no daycare being done in a lot of instances. And now what we have is an autism scandal, where a third-party auditor apparently has said that something like 90% of the claims being made to the state for running autism centers may have been fraudulent. At this point, I am fully expecting to learn that the state of Minnesota spent $1.2 billion on colonoscopies for hamsters and just signed off on it because, it's a good thing to do. They need those every few years. The hearings at the State House today have said that a lot of the people running these autism centers, they don't live in state, that only something like 6 out of 500 that have applied for licenses, out of the 500 centers, only 6 of them have applied for licenses now that they need to. And before, when they didn't need licenses, nobody ever showed up and inspected them. Almost as if you're creating a situation rife for fraud because you believe it would be mean to exercise oversight. So autism is the latest. Look for that to spread to other states and everybody start realizing, hey, we're spending billions of dollars on autism too. How many autistic kids do we have? Scandal, money, Minnesota.
Wow. Look, I'm feeling good right now because I'm from California and I need a break. And we've got Tim Waltz, skipping his way to from failure to failure. Has the whole ICE thing calmed down? Have the Chardonnay swilling, SSRI gobbling wine women who finally found meaning of their lives shouting at working class guys for hauling away foreign rapists, has that kind of settled, or is that still a thing?
Yeah, no, it's settled in as much as you don't see every day on Twitter or X, or Instagram or the other social media places, lots of people showing up and blowing the whistles and the rest of it. For a while there, my feed every day, every night, was everyone showing up at the detention centers and throwing sex toys and the rest of it. No more. So the question is, if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody to post it on social media, does it actually happen? I'm sure that there are still people out there following them around, but everything seems to have dissipated a bit. Everything seems to have calmed down. Tim Waltz got his mojo back by being, the man who was coming out against this. Never mind the fraud. Never mind the fraud. Never mind the fraud. But Minnesota has now been nominated, apparently, for a Nobel Peace Prize. Now, I think you can nominate anybody, but they're trying to get behind that and give it to us collectively as the exemplars of peace and goodwill with our reaction to ICE. But I think that circus has moved on down the road to elsewhere.
Well, look, as Minneapolis goes, I hope and pray the nation doesn't go. Again, I'm sitting here in California, and it warms my heart to have a state that's embarrassing itself more than mine. I mean, my governor just explained to an audience of black people that he's dumb like they are, which I found that remarkable.
That was indeed quite a remarkable statement. But I have to push back at you a little bit here. When people say Minnesota, they're talking about a bifurcated entity that is red on the outside and it's densely blue on the inside. And even so, the city itself, it's not as though we're in flames again. It's not as though every street corner was full of gunfire. That was 2020. It's still a beautiful place. It's still generally populated by civil, decent people. Yeah, sure, you betcha. A lot of those old Fargo cliches apply. And I love it. I love it dearly. It pains me what's happened in Minneapolis, but don't confuse parts of Minneapolis with the entirety of the great state of Minnesota.
Well, James Lilacs, I appreciate it, and thank you for the break. Thank you for a segment where I didn't have to do much at all. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter. We'll be right back. Well, that was another amazing show here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. I got 3 more to go, Dwayne.
You have 3 more to go. It was an amazing show. It'll be interesting to see what the show is tonight in D.C. It was kind of fun to watch the hockey team in front of the in front of the White House on the lawn. They took a picture there.
Oh yeah.
But then they're on the East Wing and they're walking down, the parade of presidents on the wall, going past the auto pen picture of Joe Biden. Right? You know that hallway, right?
That's beautiful.
So they're walking down the hallway, and guess what? The White House has pumping over the speakers over the PA. Freebird.
Nice.
Oh, it was grand. It was just grand.
Oh, that's so amazing. The thing I love best is the agonizing pain that uptight leftists, a lot of them women, but some of them femboys, have because these guys are unapologetically male and they just don't care. We're going to go to a Miami strip club, smoke cigars, drink beer, and rock.
And celebrate.
And celebrate. And I don't care if America's built on genocide and stolen land. It's no land acknowledgments with these cats.
Jack Hughes gets off the plane in Miami in the airport before even getting to D.C., and a reporter sticks a mic in his face and starts to go down that road. And he says, look, what does the gold medal mean? The gold medal is for all those that came before us.
Nice.
He gets it. I have no idea about his politics, and I don't care.
Well, I'm just looking at the Democrats who are getting upset about this thing because, of course, it's all Democrats. And do they convene a council of renowned idiots? All right, guys, okay, we got the mutilating kids to conform the delusions of their moms down. We got that one. Last week, we came out against dogs, right? This week, let's mourn American gold medal victories in the Olympics.
Right, and you're not doing it right unless you reject the president's invite. So go women. At least the women's team have a modicum of respect because they're not going to the White House.
You gotta get back to class.
They're college athletes, and they've got to get back to class because they want, they got in there with a higher than a 960 SAT score, and they do know how to read.
Which makes them ineligible to be governor of
California.
The state of California, apparently.
Exactly right.
Unbelievable. Well, let's see what happens on the State of the Union tonight. We're going to talk about it tomorrow here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Oh yeah, I'll have a boatload of cuts, and we'll have lots of people around to react to what happens. And I still think before this week is out, we're going to have something more to talk about too.
Oh, I can't hardly wait. And neither can the people of the free world.